You know you're in Northampton when the police organize a protest march to accommodate an old lady. I was 72 at that time. I think that qualifies as an old lady, and this was 8 years ago. I was working as an activities director at an assisted living place right on the border of Northampton in Holyoke. And when I got the job, I had to sign several job descriptions, and the one that came from the state said that not only was I supposed to address the physical, emotional, and recreational needs of the residents, but I was supposed to address their spiritual needs as well. So I'm like, wow. So at that time, women all over the country, and it turned out all over the world, were marching in solidarity. So I thought, yeah, that would be a way to address people's spiritual needs, solidarity and sisterhood. And so I endeavored to participate in one of the marches. However, these people were in their 80s and 90s and were not going to march, they would have to be in a van. And also the marches were in Hartford and Boston, and so it wasn't really doable for us. So I got this idea that we'd come to Northampton and we'd ride around town with the windows down, waving, and with the blinkers blinking. And I thought I'd better check it with the police, so I called the police and I told them my plan. And they said, no, you can't do that. Okay, so I thought some more. And I thought, well, we'll use the horns. And I called the police again. And I told them my plan. They said, no, you can't do that. So I thought about it some more, and I thought signs. So I called the police for the third time, and they took my call. And when I told them I was going to do signs on the windows, they said, no, you can't do that either. And there was a little pause, and they said, what you need is a parade permit. I said, a parade permit? How do I get that? They said, well, you come down. I said, when? They said, now. So I went to the police station, and I sat with two policemen. And the idea was I had to fill out a form, and the form was long, and they kept sitting with me. And so I said, well, you must have other things to do. And they said, no. Okay, so one of the questions, they said to me, where do you want to start the parade? And I said, I don't know. And they said, Sheldon Field. They said, where do you want to end it? I looked at them, and they said, end it at Pulaski Park. And then I said, how many people do you expect? And I said, well, maybe I'll call some other assisted living places. So I'd say maybe 5 vans, 30 people. And I said, okay. And they said, what do you want to call the march? And I had known that the Buddhists didn't march against things, they marched for things. And I wanted it to be something that these ladies, who probably had never done anything like this before, could deal with. And so I called it a march for, I wrote it in my hand, a march for decency. And who's going to be against decency? Okay, so on the way out of town, I stopped at the Gazette. And I talked to a reporter, but because I didn't want to implicate the police politically, I said that I had organized the march. And that's one of the reasons I'm telling the story today, because I didn't do it. Okay, so it was a little later that day the police called me, and they said, the Unitarian Church is going to provide marshals, and they're going to provide a rally at the end of the march. Okay. So the day of the march comes, and I'm in the van with 5 women, and we're riding along Route 5 from Holyoke toward Northampton. And there's cars parked everywhere, illegally on Route 5. And from every direction are coming people with signs. And it was crowded, and I burst into tears. And the women were looking a little worried that here was this crying lady in this crowd driving them in a van. The march went off. It was wonderful. The women seemed duly wide-eyed impressed. That was on a Saturday. On Monday, the Gazette said that 3,000 people had marched. 3 weeks ago, I knew I was going to tell the story, so I called the police and I said, "Can I use your names?" They said, "No, just say the police." And I said, "Thank you for doing what you did." And they said, "We'd do it for anyone." And that was my Northampton story.